concept going around in travel and tourism called slow tourism. And today I'm going to tell you all about slow tourism, what it is, why it's great, why I'm a big fan, and how you can be a slow tourist. If you're new here, my name is Dr. Drhayleystainton and I'm here to teach you all things travel and tourism. So let's start right at the beginning. What is slow tourism? Slow tourism is based on the concept of speed. It involves travelling for a prolonged period of time at a slow pace, allowing the tourist a deep, authentic and cultural experience. An alternative form of tourism, slow travel is typically associated with sustainable practices, taking into consideration the impacts of travel on the environment, society and the economy. Slow travel can be undertaken in any destination, but it is particularly popular amongst traditional backpacking routes in destinations such as Southeast Asia, Central America and Australia. It's also commonly identified in popular road trip areas such as Canada, Australia or the USA. So where did this concept of slow tourism come from? The notion of slow tourism actually derives from the food tourism industry. The slow food movement was developed in Italy during the late 1980s and has become more and more popular throughout the decades. The aim of slow food is to prevent local food cultures and traditions from disappearing, to counteract the rise of fast life and to raise public interest in the food that we eat, where it comes from, and how our food choices affect the world around us. The premise between slow food and slow tourism are just the same. Both industries are interrelated with many aspects of life, including culture, politics, agriculture and the environment. And there are actually three major pillars of slow tourism. Let's take a look at what these are. Dickinson et al. Define slow tourism according to these three distinct pillars. They say that in order to be slow tourism, you should be doing things at the right speed, changing the attitude that you have towards speed, and seeking quality over quantity. Generally speaking, people tend to associate slow tourism with a slower pace of life. Many of the stresses associated with travel are alleviated or at least reduced. Slow tourism involves spending longer in one place, getting to know the area and the community. Slow tourism involves the tourist slowing down and often doing less in order to gain a deeper understanding of their surroundings, the community and the authentic culture. Some suggest that slow travel should avoid the use of air and car travel altogether. Instead, tourists should use alternative means of transport that are more environmentally friendly. Whilst this may often be the case for slow tourists, in my opinion, it's not necessarily a defining characteristic. But what is one of the defining characteristics is that slow tourism is not just about speed, but it is about sustainability, which really is the most important topic in travel and tourism, and I've made a video saying why, and I will link to that one at the end. But for now, let's take a look at why sustainability is such a core part of the slow tourism movement. Slow tourism demonstrates strong links with sustainable tourism. Slow travel will often involve getting to know the local community within which you are staying. Perhaps tourists will stay in a homestay or a local Airbnb. Instead of racing to see the top sights before your return flight home, slow tourists will take their time sightseeing and looking around and exploring. They will typically read all of the exhibits in the museum. They'll sit and enjoy the sights and sounds over a coffee or whilst reading a book. And they'll see many of the lesser known attractions in the area too. Because slow tourists will often be embarking on long-term travel plans, they are often more money conscious than the tourist who is taking their annual vacation. These tourists are more likely, therefore, to eat in local restaurants and are less willing to spend their money in Western chains that are expensive in comparison. This type of behaviour promotes positive social impacts of tourism, allowing tourists to learn more about the culture and have an authentic travel experience. It also promotes positive economic impacts of tourism, as money is more likely to stay within the community, demonstrating less economic leakage from tourism. And lastly, the negative environmental impacts from tourism are often reduced through slow tourism, because travellers tend to think more consciously and will choose more environmentally means of transport. So let's dig a bit deeper and look at how we can be a slow tourist. What things can we do that are slow? So what does slow tourism look like in practice? Well, there's no straight answer to this question, but slow tourism does come in many shapes and forms. One example is backpacking. Backpacking is usually a form of slow tourism because of its speed. Backpacking trips can range from month-long adventures in Europe to round-the-world backpacking tours. Whilst backpacking trips do not always demonstrate the sustainable mindset that is associated with slow travel amongst tourists, particularly young backpackers travelling to party destinations in Thailand or Australia, there is an inevitable proportion of social benefits that will naturally raise from slow travel. Backpackers might still choose to fly, but they have probably chosen to eat and stay local too. We then have road trips. Road trips are categorised as trips that involve substantial travel by, you guessed it, road. Okay, so the use of a car or a motorhome isn't always the most environmentally friendly mode of transport, but a road trip will allow a tourist to have that slow experience and that local experience if this is what they choose. Business travel. Many people will travel on business. Business tourism can be either long-term or short-term, and it can involve travelling to one or multiple different places. Business travel can be a form of slow tourism because it can require the traveller to spend a long period of time in a destination. Volunteer tourism. Volunteer tourism is the act of visiting a destination for the purposes of undertaking voluntary work. Volunteer tourists can take part in many different types of projects, including those that work with the environment or the local community. Either way, volunteer tourism projects typically last for a month or more in duration and involve a significant level of integration with the host community. Visiting friends and relatives. VFR is one of the largest areas of the travel and tourism industry, and it continues to grow. More and more of us are relocating or expatriating, and then we use our leisure time to visit our friends and relatives, wherever in the world they may be based. Prolonged trips can be considered a type of slow tourism. Often such trips will allow the tourist to immerse themselves within a local community and to have a deep cultural experience. Hiking, cycling, and active pursuits. Travel involving the environment is popular amongst slow tourists. Hiking and cycling are two examples. For example, when I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, this would be considered slow tourism because of the slow pace that was taken. Likewise, many cycling tours are also considered forms of slow tourism. So let's round up this video by taking a deeper look at a few of the really popular areas that we travel to for slow tourism. Southeast Asia. Southeast Asia is a popular route for slow travel, particularly amongst 20-something backpackers. Thailand, Laos, Cambodia and Vietnam are popular hotspots for young travellers looking for an authentic travel experience with some of their favourite commodities from home, a few familiar faces and a great party atmosphere thrown in. Travelling on the sleeper buses through Vietnam or by slow boat in Laos are great examples of slow travel that allow the traveller to experience a deep cultural and authentic travel experience. Australia. Australia is another popular destination for slow travel. This vast country attracts intrepid explorers as well as holidaymakers. If time isn't an issue, you can easily spend months travelling through Australia. Many people choose to undertake slow travel in Australia using a motorhome. The USA. Another slow travel destination that is popular for road trips is the United States of America. America is huge, so the options really are endless. Personally, I would love to do a road trip through Route 66 someday. Europe. Interrail passes have given slow travel a big boost in Europe. These affordable train travel passes have encouraged many people to travel throughout the continent and have helped to boost tourism in the areas too. Not to mention that train travel is more environmentally friendly than many other forms of transport. So there we have it, that's slow tourism. I think slow tourism is really great. The only problem is we don't always have the time. If you've enjoyed this video, I've got more that I will put here that I'm sure you will enjoy.